Hey leaders, this week is a very busy week for our student ministry and our students. We have a group of 21 students right now at Big Stuff camps, and at the same exact time this week, we've got 17 at Warren Willis camp. Our students are experiencing some great activating moments at camps, and our job when they get home is to help their experience at camp translate into everyday life. Encourage your students to make changes in life based on what they learn, and help them to learn and adapt to let camp affect their home life. Now this week we're in part 2 of Activate. This is a very fitting series as students have great moments this summer with God. Now last week we said that there are things in life that can activate our faith or destroy our faith. And sometimes what looks like a faith destroyer can actually activate it if we allow it. Now a good representation of what happens with students in their faith is that they start out 100% sure that God is who he says he is and can do what he says he can do. But then something happens and doubt starts to creep in. All of us will experience some kind of doubt at some point or another, and even though doubt is totally normal, it can be a scary moment for us. Because if we don't handle it in a healthy way, it can make our faith feel deactivated. Now maybe you've experienced it in one of the following 2 ways. Maybe it's been a small deal in your life. Your doubt didn't creep in because of some earth-shattering circumstance, but maybe it was just a comment. A close friend teased you for living out your faith or being too close-minded, or maybe a family member, but all of a sudden you started questioning, is this really the best way to live my life? Or maybe doubt was a big deal for you. Maybe for you it was something bigger that happened in life. Maybe someone you love got sick and you prayed that God would heal them, but they didn't get better, and it left you feeling confused. Maybe your parents got divorced and you felt like God wasn't there when things fell apart. The truth is, feelings like doubt or skepticism or uncertainty aren't unusual when it comes to faith. Why? Because faith can be hard to figure out. But the cool part is that doubt and faith don't have to be opposites. One doesn't have to eliminate the other. In fact, faith and doubt can actually work together. This Sunday, we're going to look and see how Peter experienced the reaction between doubt and faith. In fact, it's one of the craziest experiences a person could have. So Peter and the other disciples were taking a boat ride across the Sea of Galilee. That's a huge lake located in Israel. Jesus had climbed a mountain to pray, and he told the disciples he would meet up with them later. And by meet up, the disciples probably assumed that, they would meet up on land. Jesus had other plans. Notice how Matthew describes the scene in one of the Gospels. It says, shortly before dawn, Jesus went to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. They said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear, but Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." So just to recap, the disciples see someone walking on the lake. Peter says, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus says, "Well, come." And this is what makes Peter such a fascinating follower of Jesus, because he literally got out of the boat and started walking on water. I mean, who does that? But just after a few steps, Peter notices a wave coming his way. And reality check. In no mood to body surf, Peter changes his view from walking on water, and like a weight tied to his body, his doubt starts to pull him down, causing him to sink. Then he does what any of us would do. He freaks out and says, "Lord, save me." And how does Jesus respond? Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. He said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt me?" That's Matthew 14:31. And he looked around and got distracted. And suddenly, Peter wasn't so sure anymore. It was all kind of a blur. But I think there was a bigger problem. It wasn't that Peter experienced doubt, but that Peter let his doubt take his eyes off Jesus. He let his focus shift from faith to fear. And when his focus moved from Jesus, Peter started to sink. His doubt led him away from God. Now let's look at that verse again. It says, immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Jesus didn't get angry. He didn't tell Peter to go figure it out on his own. He literally reaches out and saves him. He doesn't want Peter to sink because of his doubt. And then Jesus says, "Why did you doubt?" And I don't know about you, but when I read this, I don't hear judgment or anger. I actually hear sadness. Jesus was probably so pumped when Peter showed so much faith and stepped out of the boat and onto the water. And I think Jesus feels the very same way when we doubt. He isn't mad at us, not at all. In fact, I think Peter learned from this encounter that Jesus is okay with our doubt. It doesn't change how Jesus sees us or what he'll do for us. Jesus reached out his hand and caught Peter while he was thinking about doubt and sinking. and he'll do the same for you and I. But what about us? What should we do with this? I think we have to know this. Our doubts don't have to drown our faith. Rather than letting our doubt consume our faith, we can actually let it fuel our faith. But how do we do this? By keeping your focus on God. If we want to activate our faith, we must also focus on things that we know to be true about God. It doesn't mean we ignore our doubts or pretend that everything's perfect. On the other hand, it does mean that we don't forget everything God has done for us. In fact, try this. Make a list of what you know to be true about God. And when doubt starts to come in, pull out that list. But don't just stop there. Talk to God about your doubt. Tell him why you're struggling. Ask him your questions. Let God show you how those feelings can grow your faith. Don't be afraid to approach God with the things that you feel uncertain about. Now, I do know this. God is real. He is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he can do. I've experienced it firsthand. Other people in my life have experienced it firsthand. But that doesn't mean I don't have questions or doubts from time to time. And that's true for all of us. Remember, when doubt shows up, and it will, keep your focus on Jesus. And when you do, your faith will become stronger on the other side. So we'll see you at 4:45 this week for our small group leader meeting. We'll pray together, celebrate each other's weeks away at camp, and dive right into youth group together on Sunday night. Thanks for all you do. Have a great week. Bye, guys.